Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Jen Basco. I'm IBM's Global Oracle HR Offering Leader, and I'm really excited that you guys managed to stay to the last session of the day, so thank you very much. We're at the end of day 2 here, and if you attended Steve Miranda's or Yvette Cameron's keynotes, you would have heard all about AI agents that are being rolled out in 25D, new functionality that's coming in AI Agent Studio, and now the agent marketplace that is coming, where partner-developed AI agents are going to now be available to all customers. So lots of really exciting developments that are happening around AI. Sorry, so I'm getting a lot of photographs. All the cameras went up just as I started talking, so I got a little bit nervous. So all of this is really, really exciting. And I think, in terms of stuff that we're seeing, it's just, probably a little bit overwhelming as well. So we're going to talk about that today, as kind of balancing the excitement about wanting to adopt AI agents, and then maybe some of that, how do I go about and actually do that? On top of Oracle's announcements, we've also, IBM's Institute for Business Value, collaborating with Oracle, published a joint study on, Akila, you're going to have to stop taking photos of me. On agentic AI's strategic ascent. And it's basically a study that's looking at how organizations are adopting AI strategies, and more importantly, how they're making changes to make sure those those strategies succeed. So our research is showing that organizations are moving away from incremental gains to net new impacts. And this is really important because we're seeing that this is adding, instead of just looking at getting additional productivity gains, really rethinking how your processes are working. So fundamentally shifting how you're doing your work entirely. And on top of that, we're also seeing this play out in how leaders are structuring their teams and really looking at new roles that need to be developed. So things like AI workforce and experience orchestration and multi-agent systems architecture. So things that you wouldn't have seen a couple years ago, we're now seeing leaders creating these new roles in their organizations. And this is not theoretical. This is not something that is just being done on a piece of paper as an exercise. This is being done in those forward-thinking organizations. And on top of team structure changes that are happening, the operating model is being completely redesigned. And so we're seeing how people and autonomous agents are collaborating, evolving, and taking on new roles in a continuous loop over time. And so those organizations that are making that shift are going to be moving faster and be more adaptable than those that are not. And so to me, this is the part that gets really exciting. However, I'm playing it against that contrast of, I'm hearing from a lot of different customers, a lot of different people that we're talking with, that they're not clear on where to start. Is this worth the investment? And what happens if we get it wrong? And I think that's mostly important in HR, what happens if we do get it wrong. We've seen a lot of headlines over the last couple of years when something like that has happened and the impact that it has on an organization. But doing nothing is a bigger risk, because talent, technology, and your competition is not going to be stopping. They're going to continue to evolve. So if you're not on this journey, you're going to be left behind. But the good thing is you don't have to do everything all at once. And I think if you take anything away from the session, is just knowing that you don't have to start, coming at it with everything, all the bells and whistles all at once. You can make some real practical and manageable steps along that journey and see some really quick wins, and then build that foundation for getting that transformation. In a moment, we're going to have our panelists come and join me on the floor here, but sitting up in the front. And we're going to be hearing from them about their approaches and the strategies that they've taken to start their journey. And I think one thing that, again, taking away, they have all started on their journey. That's the one thing that they all have in common. They come from different industries and different perspectives, but they've all started, and I hope that you get something from this discussion. So with that, I'd like to welcome Kim Morick, Gareth Turney, and Charles Morick to this front, and we're going to start our conversation. So, Gareth, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about Phoenix Group, your role, and where you are in your AI transformation journey.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Gareth Turner. I'm the head of people function change. So I look after all the change that comes through the people function, HR function. Phoenix Group is a long-term savings and retirement business. We have about 12 million customers in the UK, and we look after assets about 290 billion. So we have some offices in Ireland as well as Germany and Austria as well, but predominantly UK-based business. We moved from EBS to Oracle Cloud HCM during COVID about four and a bit years ago, and we had a number of heritage businesses, so we brought them together. And basically put them onto the cloud, harmonized everything, outsourced payroll, all good. We did it again the following year, and really what we had at that point was we had an awful lot of the Oracle technology, but we weren't using it in the best way. So we kicked off a transformation journey, and that's probably where the start of this kind of AI mindset, this blended workforce concept really kind of built momentum there. So we had a project called Thunderbird, which lots of random reasons why it got called that, but effectively that was all about changing the mindset to self-serve and colleague-centric HR proposition. So that's really the early days of where we were looking at how do we augment our workforce with these blended, digital representatives, but also how do we then evolve? So at that point we had ODA, Oracle Digital Assistant, and that's called Mackenzie. So that's how we refer to our Oracle Digital Assistant. And then last year we did a payroll as well, Oracle Payroll. So we brought all our payrolls back in, and we now use Oracle Payroll. So we've kind of got the really good building blocks of that, and started on that journey.
That's great, wonderful. Charles, over to you. Tell us a little bit about Verisk.
So I'm Charles Morgan. I've been with Verisk for about 2 years now, and I was brought in to start the transformation program, and the transformation program was to replace our technology backbone across finance and HR, and to evolve the operating model to enable things like shared services, and we did that in 15 months. So 19 countries. We did order to cash, we did HR, we did payroll, we did procure to pay, we did planning, and we survived. And so when we kind of think about the role of AI, we're certainly looking now, we're really kind of at the beginning of this, we're still kind of really settling the platform, but we're really looking now about, we've got things like ODA. We haven't given it a name. We had our old chatbot, which is called Vic. But we also have now a way that we think about leaning in on other capabilities which are using Gen AI to use that to kind of accelerate our kind of ingestion of things like we've re-leveled everybody in the company. So we've got a standard global leveling. We've now got standard skills, et cetera. So we're starting to lean in on AI and use that as an accelerator to populate all of that kind of data. You used to be able to do that. I did it at one of my prior companies, and it probably took 15 or 18 months. Everyone was doing it independently. You just got no standards or anything. Now with those kind of capabilities, we can really think about how that's going to be accelerated and done, rather than sort of on a best endeavors basis, can be done systemically.
Wonderful. And Kim, you've been at the center of IBM's Client Zero story and how we used AI to transform our business and HR operations. Can you give us a little bit of snapshot of what that looked like and kind of what happened over the last few years?
Sure. So can you turn this down a little bit? Thank you. So hi, I'm Kim Morick. I run our global HR technology practice at IBM. I've been with IBM for about 20 years, both as a consultant and then internal HR for about 15 years, and now I'm back as a consultant, sharing our story with our clients. So IBM has been on an AI journey in HR for about 7 years. So we started with an old school chatbot type situation, dialogue flow-based chatbot, which got to around 90% accuracy, and we're able to answer all of the questions. So we moved to a shared services model. So basically flipped our HR so we're doubly as effective as we were in the past. Put a whole digital front door on HR such that you have got to go through what we call Ask HR is what we've named it. We've been told we should call it Do HR because it's evolved from the initial branding of just a sort of FAQ situation to now, we can do lots of transactions, which we'll talk about later. So I think, if I can say so myself, IBM is leading in this space for HR and have a really great user experience. All of the IBMers are happy to share it with all of their clients, and we're continuing to iterate on it. And I'll share some of what our roadmap looks like.
So we've got three kind of different levels of where different organizations, different places on their journey, with IBM kind of being leading. So I think it's a really good foundation for us to start the conversation. So Gareth, you mentioned McKinsey. What kind of outcomes did you guys see when you rolled out that digital assistant?
So in terms of the way we went about it, because we were changing how we wanted the colleague to interact with it, we gave it a personality, really. So that's one of the main reasons for giving it a name. And we kind of put L plates on it, and we said, like, find the gremlins and stuff like this, because we wanted to get people using it, not just give a tool that people wouldn't then interact with. So gave it this personality, and actually, encouraged people to find the answers that they need. So it instilled that self-service mindset. So with ODA, in the first 6 months, we saved 90 days of FTE effort. So there was 90 days that we saved there. We had 26,000 interactions with it, and it got to a 93% success rate. So
that's great. In
terms of the answers there. So it really encouraged us, in terms of what we saw there. It was really impressive, really helpful.
And that was rolled out in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And so where are you looking at next on your AI journey?
So I think ODA is great, and it's it's really served a purpose. I think we're starting to look at how these agents and things that we've seen this week many times, and about how we can augment or replace ODA in terms of using the capabilities that we've seen.
Wonderful. All right, Charles, so you kind of undertaken a job, like a project to kind of revamp your job architecture. You started off with levels, and then you're moving into skills and learning. Kind of what was your reasoning behind going that direction after you went live with HR?
So I think the key item there is to understand, what the vision of our CHRO was in terms of how, HR could better position our workforce for their future growth. And so, having grown up through acquisitions, what we'd found is that we'd never got a consistent basis for how we would level a job and what each role was. And if you could then think about what that means from an employee or someone who's setting out on a career, it's like, how do they know what the expectation is? And what their next activity needs to be. So our CHRO has a vision that we need to enable. So step one is to get these standard job families created. That's all happened. Step two was, and we've worked very closely with IBM on this, is to get populated into those, like, what are the skills that are required for that role? And what are the skills that are going to be required for their next role? And because we're now on a fully integrated system, we have this vision now that we've got the skills, we've got the career progression. Now we're going to be able to link it into the standard job descriptions, and that's where Gen AI will come in. We'll be able to map that into people's learning journeys and that expectation of, if I'm going to get from this level up to that, here are the set of skills that I'm going to be required to have for this next step, and here is the training needs that I'm going to need to have to get completed, which we can populate from other bodies that we've got, like we've got LinkedIn integrations, et cetera. So we've got all of that now within our training catalogs. And what I'm expecting to happen during 2026 is we'll start getting people calling and say, like, I've done the 3 training courses, I'm now ready to go from accounts payable to CFO. And we're going to have to manage. We're going to have to manage that model. It's like just because you've done the course doesn't actually get you. But that's that kind of vision about just helping people, plot their career and what it's going to take to progress.
That sounds great. And are you looking at any of the AI agents that are coming out that have already been rolled out? And there's been quite a few that have came out, been announced today.
Yeah, so that if you kind of think about that as being tying into the that kind of career progression, other agents that are out there which we think are like a really interesting. Clearly, we've got now recruitment happening inside the system, and I don't know if I went through this like 2 years ago when I was looking for a job. The recruitment process is like completely broken. And so you've got these AI agents that can now flood every job offer that's out there. You've got to find a way to kind of parse that back and figure out who are the set of people that you need to interview, how do their skills match the jobs that you've now got and your job families and capabilities that you're trying to build. And so those kind of AI agents in these kind of other processes, they're going to be things that we're going to be leaning into in 2026.
That sounds great. Kim, I mean, obviously we've been at this for a little bit. What was the most exciting use case in your mind that we rolled out?
Use case?
Or agent?
Let me, yeah, I'll say, so in March, we took our system from the old school dialogue-based chatbot to a fully Gen AI, so agentic content generation as well as agentic workflows across 27 HR domains. So this is like massively scaling. So when we're talking about these agents, we have a comp agent, we've got an onboarding agent, we've got a payroll agent. The extent of their capabilities at the moment, I'd say, are definitely tier 0 for all the FAQs, and tier 1 to get to actions. And then as we continue to roll out, we'll get up to tier 2 and tier 3. And once you start your journey, the journey never ends. It's very fun. I mean, I love this talk about AI all the time. We're actually on sprints every 2 to 3 weeks. We're rolling out new features. And as you do this user-centered design, and I saw Oracle has put that into place, it's seamless, so you don't even have to tell people what the new features or functionalities are. It just presented to them, so when they go and ask it. So, I mean, I love that. I love that part. We've been a skills-based organization for about 8 years, and so the features that they rolled out, they announced today, are awesome. We have been doing that, but we've been having to do that off of a thin data layer because of bifurcated systems that we have. So that point, if you were in the keynote today for HCM, of consolidation to the core, is crucial for like a lower cost of ownership, because trying to get at the data from some of the other systems isn't necessarily a challenge, but it requires engineering that you don't necessarily need if you're all in one system. So we have been doing that for a while. We know how to do it across all these various systems, but I just wanted to make that be a point that system consolidation is going to be extremely beneficial as this AI world moves forward.
That's great. So this is all really exciting, and it sounds wonderful, but I'm sure there's some challenges along the way. So Gareth, what kind of challenges have you faced? I know you had to put an AI strategy team together. And how did you overcome them?
We're obviously a financial services, so regulated. I'm assuming a number of people in the room are as well. And compliance and legal are not always your friends when it comes to this.
Yeah, sure.
When we went about this, what we had to do was really think about where we were going, what the elements of the strategy needed to be. So we obviously had to do Redwood to enable this. The mindset being is, you've got foundations you've got to do, so you're not always going to be able to move fast, but you can run in parallel. So that ability to sort of go slow to move quick, and paying that back, and then really trying to identify what the elements of the strategy are, get all your foundations in place, and then really that will then allow you to make those steps forward. But that was probably one of the biggest challenges. And I think one of the other things that was around kind of almost reassuring that those departments that actually it's okay. Our data is held within the Oracle container. They're quite happy for us to store personally identifiable information there.
Yeah.
So once you start proving and you show that you're thinking through of that, it starts to help you unlock those conversations.
And since you mentioned Redwood, just a quick question to the audience, because we've had lots of different conversations with clients about the move to Redwood. Has everyone in the room already made the move? If you're on, and do you all kind of face challenge? Someone in the back's raising their hand as well. Have you faced challenges in moving? Because that's step number that's step number one of starting this journey on Oracle HCM Cloud is getting to Redwood. So thank you for sharing that. So Charles, in terms of your approach and how you've moved to kind of starting that with ODA, what were the challenges that you faced around change management and getting your employees to adopt the digital assistant?
Yeah. So a big part of why we were making the move, when we think about what are sort of success criteria, was we wanted to move towards self-service, and so that was something which in our legacy PeopleSoft environment, we had our HR BPs kind of doing this kind of transaction management, transaction enablement. And we wanted to kind of get them into a place where they could do the kind of strategic work around building the workforce for our future, rather than being this kind of transaction enabler. So one of the things that we've been doing is getting to that kind of self-service model. And we're probably about 60-70% of the way there. As we've kind of moved to shared services, we've got like the right people in the right locations doing the right activities. So kind of not throwing away what was done in the past, but really building on it and evolving it. As we kind of think about that kind of like that next step, I think some of the emerging challenges that we have is that AI, it's the thing of the moment. But if we're in a regulated industry, it's the thing that our legal department is very, very concerned to make sure that we're not going to go off and sort of put ChatGPT running against one of the biggest data sets on the planet, which is we have all the data from all of the insurance companies, and that's our business. And so we've got a very strong governance model that we're standing up, and so we're sort of settling our foundation and then trying to work out how we kind of intersect with the business AI initiatives where people are looking across all of the data sets that our customers give us, which then allows us to do produce the products and the models that we use for pricing or claims and fraud analytics, et cetera, which is our real business with the insurance industry, but kind of making sure that we're able to execute our internal AI vision aligned with the new protocols that the business is establishing as they come up with like new products that are being asked for by our customers. And so we're kind of navigating that right now, and that's talking about go slow to go fast. We're still in the sort of frankly in the go slow business, and that's not too much of a problem for us right here, right now, because we're still settling that foundation and completing the build of those capabilities, and that we see this as being like if we get the foundation right, that's a massive accelerator to the adoption that's going to come in 2026 and beyond.
Great. And Kim, I mean, one of the things I find most refreshing is our CHRO, Nicole Lamoureux. She's very, very open about some of the challenges that we've faced as we have gone on this journey. Can you share some of those challenges that we faced and what we did to overcome them?
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to double down on the governance and how important it is. And somebody said a quote that was like, you don't put brakes on a car so that you can drive slow. You put brakes on a car so that you can drive fast. And so when you start slow, it is really important that you build that foundation. AI is not the easy button to get started. There are hard things that you have to do. And so we talk about eliminate, simplify, and automate. So this means you're looking at all of your HR processes. For an example, in IBM, we had 600 different versions of an offer letter going back to recruiting. The front end process is bad, the back end process is also really complicated, and a lot of data entry. So we're now down to 16. We're in 170 different countries with all different types of employees. So that requires thought and rigor from the humans to determine what are the offer letters going to be before you automate it. So I want you to start thinking about that and start thinking about the processes, how you can simplify those particular processes before you go and automate it. The other piece was And we learned this recently. So initially I had mentioned our chatbot was dialogue flow, means that you pre-program what the answers are, so you know explicitly what the answers are. Moved into a generative space, so pulling into all of our HR repositories, well, there's a decent amount of work that needs to occur with all of your policies, and then all of your sort of how-to guides, and then standing up governance within your HR COEs for how are you going to maintain those going forward. Because much like in the core corpus of your Oracle HCM that is structured data, and I'm assuming everybody has data governance sitting on top of your core corpus, that's very structured. Your policy databases, typically organizations, that's an afterthought to go back and make sure everything is in there. So those are some lessons that I would say if you're thinking about moving to agentic, start revisiting some of your policies and your standard operating procedures, your FAQs, all of those types of things need to be in order, because then you can come in with the tools and ingest it, but it's only as good as what the foundation is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know that a lot of clients are in that same situation. So Charles, I know you focus as part of your implementation on really cleaning up your data, particularly around policies and processes. I guess, what did you do to kind of around network to get your data in order? You also mentioned you guys sit on top of, kind of own and manage a lot of data. So just kind of talk to us a little bit about what data means to you and how you govern it.
Yeah, so I think policies is one which is, frankly, still a work in progress. Now, what we've been able to do sort of in the US, we're about 80% of our business is in the US, ditto, like number of people. So, we have got that kind of policy standardization working for the US, but talking about like offer letters and benefits and the like, we've grown through acquisition. And historically, just as we hadn't leveled the jobs, we hadn't done standardization of benefits, standardization of policies, and even within the same country, if we had 5 different acquisitions in the UK or in Germany, we've got at least 5 different policies. And so one of the things that we're looking at now from what can be like that forcing function, because no one wants to do this work voluntarily.
Right.
There is no easy button. And so, one of the things that we're looking at pretty actively, we're on payroll here in the US, and that's a kind of forcing factor. So what we're thinking about doing is setting up like an international payroll program and making that sort of complement the data cleanup and the policy alignment that needs to happen entity by entity by entity. And that's something which I've done in the past, and you couldn't get it over the line from a business value creation perspective, because people got paid in the past, they're going to get paid in the future. But the sort of light bulb moment was talking to the CHRO and saying, if your core HR record is driving your compensation is going to be your feedback loop into your core data about, I'm not getting paid the right amount, and it's going to be much, much quicker. And so we're kind of thinking about that as a sort of a model as we kind of go through 2026 as a way to, force the adoption of much more standardized policies, processes, benefits, and the like, and getting some of that variability out. So we know we have the core HR records in the system, we know they're accurate, but we haven't yet got that kind of policy, benefits, et cetera, alignment. But we know we have to do it. The question is like, how are we going to kind of create the momentum towards it?
And just to add on to that, Kim, is there any suggestions that you would say in terms of putting that governance in place to kind of keep your data, make sure your data is maintained and it's compliant? And so
you can use Gen AI on top of this, right? So we do help clients with some of the policy, so harmonization, especially across, within a country. So that's to get it set. Next evolution is actually to have a policy agent, but you have to have, once everything is set and governed, you have a policy agent that can actually search the internet and see when new policies are coming, and then trigger alerts that these 5 documents might need to be reviewed by a human, and set it back, and then put the whole thing in motion, right? So that's the next evolution, but you have to have your core policy corpus in place.
Yeah, that's quite interesting from us as a business. So we think about our AI business, from a business perspective, we help all of our customers come up with an insurance policy document. And so each time the state or the local regulators, insurance commissioners are changing the policies, we're now able, as like an AI offering that we have, is to look at the customer's policies and say, well, these terms are no longer the standard. Here's your new policy. So each time you get your annual policy, which I'm sure you read in great detail, know that all of those terms, quite often, if you look down the bottom, you actually see that they come from Verisk. If you see ISO at the bottom, that means that's a Verisk thing, and that means that each one of the insurance industry, the insurance policies in each market, can keep a policy that is compliant with their local regulations. But that kind of neat tie-in between our HR policies and insurance policies.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Gareth, just in terms of, just kind of thinking back over what you've done in terms of your journey, what advice would you give to the audience about where to, if they haven't started yet, and what they should be looking at?
Yeah, I think given this week, but the environment we find ourselves in now, I think, in terms of when you're starting out, I think identifying those use cases that bite with people. I think there's always an obsession with return of investment. It's always like return on investment. But actually, if we think about the most successful technologies, the times they bite is when they meet a need or they identify with people and people can associate with them.
Absolutely.
So if you think about it from that way and that point of view, you can start to build enthusiasm. You can start to build momentum. So, identify use cases that either encourage users or meet a need or drive that. I would start with AI agents now. Probably wouldn't start with ODA, if I'm being honest. It was great. It served the purpose brilliantly. But I think the pace it's moving and that, you will, if you do that and you get the enthusiasm and you get the momentum, you can then start to deal with the more complex use cases. You can build that faith, that trust, and then that will allow you to enable your skills of the future in your workforce.
It's fantastic. And Kim, I guess in terms of, I think I mentioned it at the beginning about operating model changes. This was a key part of our transformation. What could you, just talk a little bit about how that can help unlock value for organizations?
So I know you don't necessarily want to start with ROI, and I wholeheartedly do agree that it's a combination of what is going to get the return, but also what is going to get the attraction of the employees. Because if there's no adoption, then you're not going to get the return. So there is finding this balance, right? But to the point where eventually, I say most everybody's going to start with HR self-service if you don't have some capacity in, just because there are thousands of hours that are spent in HR SD. So then it's like, well, once you have that digital frontier in, how is your new operating model working so that your HR business partners are only fielding level 3 type queries, right? Because initially, where most organizations start, if they haven't implemented any sort of AI, I'm going to my HR business partner or I'm emailing somebody, and there is no digital passing of the information. So what we actually have flipped our whole operating model around. So all the first line HR business partners are in a pooled, in a shared services pool, right? So queries come in, 98% are answered, maybe 80%. Then the second, if it is a payroll query, it goes directly to the payroll specialists. So this is what we're talking about. And then we're changing it so that those HR business partners are getting deep domain expertise in payroll, in recruiting, in learning, and rotating them through here. So now now you are going to be in a few years ready to be the HR business partner for the executives because you have deep domain experience. So there is a definite positiveness for these HR business partners. Instead of being a generalist, now you're going to be deeply skilled in all the domains. And by the way, that's how they can do more strategic work. And now you've enabled that ROI because the digital tier is doing the sort of monotonous things.
So We have a few minutes. We're a little bit early, and I wanted to open up to QA. I don't know if anyone has any questions specifically that you want to ask, because I think everyone here has got a very unique and interesting perspective on maybe things that you can start with. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. Yes.
How can you skill the employee? I mean, how is it possible? I mean, it is difficult. Sorry for my English is not so good, but we are trying to skill the employee. But the problem is which skills you decide that are good for an employee. Okay. Because we ask the manager to decide for whichever skill that each employee, each department, each staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It is very difficult. We stopped to do that because there were too many.
So, shall I take that? So I think the question was, how do you determine the skills for each role? And I think, you got to kind of start somewhere, and you're not going to start like by boiling the ocean. So I'll do a plug for IBM here.
Thank you. We didn't ask you for this, but this is wonderful.
Absolutely. Okay. We bought it. So we have a license with Oracle. So with IBM, it's Lexonis. That we basically bought the catalog of skills in. So we now have mapped the roles to the sort of industry standard skills for each one of those roles. So not asking the managers, because that's really going to give you that sort of non-standardized answer. So we've kind of licensed that. So we've got like a 3 or 4 year license for that. So that gives us kind of like the baseline skills. And then we're asking the employees to say, like, where do they sit on the journey? Are they like level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? So there's a big population of potential skills on each role. But we ask the employees now to self-select the top 4 or 5 and where they stand on their sort of competency and maturity ladder for those. And then we have the managers, this bit hasn't happened yet, but then we'll have the managers have a conversation around the employee's assessment of their skills and the manager's assessment of their skills. And you kind of think about that then as kind of like step 1 of this kind of multi-step journey. So we'll look then more in the future around the dynamic skills. It's kind of on the roadmap for 2026. And then you start thinking about the sort of the AI capabilities to kind of the standardized job description. So we have a job description for a quote data scientist inside Verisk. How does our description of a data scientist compare with the many other data scientist descriptions that are out there in the broader market, and what's that differential, and then what are we going to do about that? Are we wrong? Are they wrong? Are we both right? Which doesn't really matter. It's just like you just want to have a point of view, but you kind of think about that sort of journey to maturity. All of these then agents can then start to give you that information to know where you want to lean in and make some changes, and where you want to okay, fine, that is a differentiator for us as a business. And I think if we all go back like 3 or 5 years, it's like everyone was a data scientist, which basically, I'm competent with Excel, I'm a data scientist. Okay, it's not really what it's about, but you're going to have to educate people around what those expectations are and what it's going to take you to get from where you are to where you want to be. And I think that really ties into that whole journey.
Thanks, Charles. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions if anyone else. Yes.
So my name is Matt. I'm a HR solutions architect at PAN3896. We're kind of just starting this journey, or just starting the initial stages of looking into implementing more AI. So Kim, you had mentioned one of the biggest things that you kind of need to have in place is that governance model. Can you tell me what some of the major considerations to form that governance model look like?
So at the highest level of organizations now, they typically have an AI board. right? Okay, and you bring your use cases to the AI board. The AI board will set standards for what you can and cannot do, what data you will and will not utilize. And typically that board, there can be members from HR, there's members from IT, typically go around the organization because you want to have different points of view and not have everybody invested in that my use case, you're going to pick my use case, right? Obviously legal is on the board. We need to bring legal in, right? They're obviously on the board. Typically you'll have people from finance on the board too, and everybody does things differently, right? So what he was saying about like what his business is with their data, then you're going to be very making sure everything that you're doing, probably they have an on-prem version of a large language model or something like that, right? Is that something that you need to consider, or there's a lot of those types of things. So I'd recommend first talk to legal and see what they're thinking about, and then you bring use cases up there. Mm-hmm.
Great. Any more? One more question? Everyone just wants to get to the happy hours or dinner plans that they have. Andy.
Yeah, so question for you. When we looked at the different market geos, and obviously we have both councils and things of that sort across, right? So how much time did it take us to get everything together from a legal standpoint and get the sign-ups from both councils, etc.? Because, for example, in Germany, transferring an employee would be
Yeah, no, in Germany.
So everyone some people are putting their heads down. Yeah, it's trauma.
Yeah, that's total trauma. I mean, in IBM and in clients that I've worked with, the pilots are always United States and India. Big population from a lot of the organizations. And then you start, once the use cases are proved out in a pilot, go straight away to the works councils, and then you'll get through them all differently at different times with different requirements. China's also very difficult, so that's the way we do it. And some of the things we cannot enable in some of the DACH countries in IBM that we do have enabled elsewhere. And so you have to, that's part of your governance too, if you guys are that big. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're at time. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank our panelists here today. Thank you all for coming.